of them as well. What a move from the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from the number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to round number 2 of the 2024 Abruzzi Prototype Challenge. My name is Connery Maddock, and for this evening's event I will be joined by the ever wonderful Paul Smith here in the commentary booth. We head stateside, we head to the High Bank to Daytona for the second round of this Prototype Championship. Of course, a track no stranger to these vehicles whatsoever. Of course, holding the ever famous Daytona 24 in the very early parts of every year. It's looking very grey, looking very threatening with the clouds there, but we'll get into that in just a little bit more time. But you can see the calendar here. We had a fantastic opening round at Spa-Francorchamps where we got our first set of winners, but we're well into the season now, into the second race meeting. We remain here in the United States for round number 3, but then we head across the Pacific to Suzuka before heading to the home of British Motorsport, Silverstone, for our finale, round number 5 on the 10th of September. So we're just going to have a little bit of a look at the standings as they are at the moment. William Foyle top of the LMDh Pro order, with Ben Ford in second place with Daniel Thomas in third. It was a close run thing between those drivers at Spa-Francorchamps. We're expecting some close racing here today as well. Adam Locke and Jordan Strudrick will round out the top 5 with regards to that particular category. Then you got Saruta, Garantino, Dove, Matthew Luke and Lendvar rounding out the top 10 there. As far as the LMDh AM standings are concerned, it was Charles Wimbley taking the lion's share of the points last time out, with Patrick Den coming in second place. Those two were also close on circuit for significant portions of that previous race as well. Robin Katzenberger in P3 with Daniel Rees in P4, Luca Monroe P5. Then you got Jamie Gibson, Nick Dealey, Philip Cannell, Louis Hesketh and Jack Mace rounding out the top 10 there. In your LMP3 Pro standings, there's only a handful of them. Gareth Higgins, after getting pole position, having an issue on the first lap and dropping all the way to the back of the field, was able to come all the way back through and take the race win there. So we might even see potentially similar heroics here today, or might even stretch his legs at the front of the field. Then we've got Andrew Muddle in P2 with Castles in P3. Then you have a look at LMP3 AM, Aidan Carter taking the race win there last time out, with Francesco Sikorsky in P2. Callum Newton P3 with Ethan Bradford and Joe Coffin rounding out the top 5 cars. Bud Meacham, Kelso, Curtis and Noble rounding out the top 10 there. So that's the top to the bottom in terms of the standings for each of the 4 categories that we have out on circuit. But Paul, for the second race, we're heading to Daytona. I call it the sort of big equalizer race. The draft is going to be a massive component of what's going to happen today. And really, it's a bit of a wildcard event. I would say, 90% of the field could probably win this on if their luck turns to gold.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. It certainly is one of those tracks where you can see surprising results. I mean, so many years we've seen finishers of the Rolex 24 Hours at the start of the season in January have drivers and teams separated by less than a second. So if you could do that after 24 hours, in an hour-long race here today, we could well see numerous cars with an opportunity of getting that race win. And it is a challenging track to get your car set up at, because you need as little downforce as possible for these sections through the oval part of the circuit, but then you do need that low speed grip through the first twisty tight section through the International Horseshoe, for example. The Le Mans chicane as well, that's a relatively fast chicane, it must be said now, but certainly you've got to have your car set up as a little bit of a compromise, more for the speed.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's always very tricky because you never have that ideal package coming through that midfield section. It's just sort of is always going to feel not quite right. But like I said, you're making the sacrifices for these big long straightaways. But as we ride on board with Zed Murray, 7th place in LMDh AM at the moment, and across the line. It's well, I would expect most of the drivers to be able to at least get a lap in here. There's not that many places where you can go awfully wrong with in terms of the off-track. You still have to be very careful, but it's not like Spa-Francorchamps where you can step foot out of line and get yourself a 1x relatively easily. Of course, not as easy as it used to be after the changes with the slowdown penalties and things being added to that particular circuit, but you still have to be careful. But we're riding on board with our current LMDh AM pole position sitter. That's Philip Cannell. Let's see how he negotiates the second horseshoe there. A little bit of a squirrely moment coming out of the corner. And then we head onto the turn just before the banking. Carry as much speed as possible. I've seen so many people, myself included, loop it out of there though.
Yeah, it's you just get impatient with the throttle and you think, oh, I could get just a little bit more speed out the car, and yeah, before you know it, you're feeling very silly having a spin there. You were talking about 1Xs. This on the apex there,
yes,
you can so easily catch the grass on that left-hand side on the exit of the Le Mans chicane, and therefore invalidate your lap right at the end of your lap when you've been putting in a good lap.
Yeah, always have to be, you know, the thing is, it's not quite easy to tell where the 1X is there and where it isn't, so you kind of, it's a bit of a leap of faith as you throw yourself across those apexes. But Philip Cannell went across the line second in the AM order in terms of the LMDh category. Oliver Ettridge has actually pipped him to the post here, and actually is 3rd place overall in terms of qualifying for that for qualifying in general. So he's done very well. On board with Callum Newton, who's the one of our competitors in LP3, and washes out a little bit there through that left hand, and that's going to be quite a bit of time lost. And with the lap times potentially being pretty close here in qualifying, you don't want to lose a couple of tenths by breaking traction there and washing up the corner.
Yeah, it was very much just back in, just not cooperating fully with him as into that Le Mans chicane. It is tricky. These LMP3 cars, of course, not as much downforce as your GTPs or your LMDHs. See, I say GTP because, of course, that's what IMSA call it, and we're racing at an IMSA circuit. So, yeah, I'm apologise in advance. I'm going to trip up so many times with that.
There's an 11 to 12 second difference between the lap times the LMDh cars are able to put out around here and the LMP3s, at least at this moment with this set of drivers. But we are getting towards the latter part of the session now. Louis Hesketh has not been able to set a lap time so far here, and he's going to have his last opportunity to be able to do so right about now. So leaving it until the very last moments there for Louis Hesketh. He does get the lap time in. 6th place in LMDh AM. That's 15th place on the grid overall. Here's Sarah Dove heading her way across the line now for the pro effort, and does actually improve position there up into 7th place in the pro category and 8th place overall. Jack Mace as well, heading his way through at the moment in the number 32 car. So this is the last efforts really from the drivers to get themselves their place on the starting grid, and there's definitely going to be an invalidated lap for Jack Mace, so he will start no higher than 8th place in the LMDh AM category with 40 seconds left to go. I know you potentially might be looking out there saying, oh, it looks rather grey and miserable. Is there any chance of rain? Well, if you want to believe iRacing, then technically yes, we have a percentage chance of precipitation, but there's absolutely nothing on the radar at the moment.
Yeah, we were looking at that before the race, going thinking, oh, we're going to have a bit of excitement with changeable weather, but no, it does look like we are going to be staying particularly dry, and in fact it goes mostly cloudy partway through the race, so we've changed conditions in terms of the cloud cover. So yeah, we're not going to get the wet stuff falling from the sky, but certainly we'll see some thrilling racing out there.
That's all we'll hope for. We got it at Spa. Hopefully we get it at Daytona. But here's the starting grid then. This is the LMDh Pro category. Daniel Thomas taking pole position. 3rd place in the championship. 1st place on the starting grid. But he's got one of his championship contenders right on the front row with him, Ben Ford. Then you've got Christian Saruta at P3 with, well, it's kind of glitched out on our graphics there, but at least David Aver there in P5 overall is going to be in P4 on our starting grid. Then you've got Jordan Studwick in P5 with William Foyle in P6. Further down the order, you've got Sarah Dove in P7 with Adam Locke in P8, Salvatore Garantino in P9. Then we've got Cody Cosford in P10. Matthew Luke will be our final driver on the starting grid for LMDh Pro. Then you've got LMDh AM with Oliver Ettridge taking the pole position there, and actually that's good enough for 4th place overall if it was a combined category. Philip Connell in P2 with Daniel Rice in P3 with Patrick Den P4, Rocco Valentino P5 with Louis Hesketh in P6. Further down the order, you got Katzelberger P7, Jack Mace P8, Charles Wimbley P9. Going to have a lot of work to do to improve from there for our last race winner. Then you've got Luca Monroe, Jamie Gibson, and Zed Murray rounding up the top 12 there. In the LMP3 Pro, well, there's only 2 of them, so here's your front row: Ann Castles and Andrew Medell. Then you've got your LMP3 AM with Sikorsky up into P1 with championship leader Aidan Carter in P2 with Mark Baker in P3, and then you've got Callum Newton in P4. Liam Kelso and Craig Curtis will round out the top 6 cars in that category. Then you've got Cav Budd, Joe Coffin, Belal Usman, Ethan Barford, and Baz Meacham rounding out the final couple of cars on the LMP3 AM starting grid. So the drivers are lining up all on the back straight here. It's only going to be a very short pace lap before we get things going. As far as this particular race is concerned, it's going to be a tricky run in towards the ever tricky first turn here at Daytona, and then we'll be off racing, hopefully in some quite close quarters fashion, as the packs tend to keep themselves together here.
Yeah, there's very few LMDHs other than Cadillacs and Porsches. We have got a BMW out there. We've also got an Acura. So, yeah, just a couple of drivers booking the trend. It's mainly Porsches and Cadillacs out there in the LMDH class. We'll see how it goes for them and whether one of those 2 can pop a surprise.
Well, we've got 3 different LMDHs on the top 3 spots. Excuse me, we don't. We have 2 different LMDHs on the front row, I should say. So we have the Porsche and then the Cadillac of Daniel Thomas and Ben Ford there. The highest place Acura in P6. But as the pace car heads its way down on towards the pit lane, field under the control of Daniel Thomas, to get our 2nd race of the Abruzzi Prototype Challenge underway here for 2024. Green flag at the Daytona International Speedway. Down in towards turn number 1 they come. Daniel Thomas on the inside there from pole position, able to get clear by the time the exit of the corner arrives. Christian Ceruta able to try and make up decisions early on. We got a bit of an incident at the back as we see the LMP3s head their way through now as well. Anthony Castle still leading in that one. Salvatore Garanzio seems to have been the driver that has had an issue here as he's dropped down the field in the LMDh category. But side by side for high placing positions in the LMDh category is David Vare and Christian Ceruta went side by side through the hairpin, but will be able to get themselves single file here. Looking to the inside, Oliver Ettridge on Jordan Strudwick as there's been a bit of a pile up. Oh no, through turn 6 and 7 in the LMDh category. Your highest place AM driver Oliver Ettridge seems to have got involved in the incident and has collected a couple of cars in that as well with an overly optimistic move.
Yeah, not the ideal way to start your race, that one, unfortunately. Also Sarah Dove involved in all of that as well. So big issues for a few drivers out there. There's a car spinning as well. I think that's Matthew Look. I think it is. And yeah, that's a spin into the Le Mans chicane. Whether it was assisted or whether it's just on the brakes. Very easy to lock up the rear brakes on some of these prototypes. You've got to be careful with your down changes here. And there's Patrick Dan. Yeah, with no front end. I think that was from that incident coming onto the banking.
So that's significant in terms of the LMDh AM Championship. Patrick Den, second place coming out of Spa. And cycled all the way down in the order here at Daytona. So it's never what you like to see. It's kind of shuffled the LMDh Pro order around by a significant amount. As big incident, car on the wall. Cody Cosford, number 14, able to rejoin the circuit and try and nurse that car around. And yeah, well, hopefully it wasn't too significant of the incident so he can continue. These drivers do get themselves one fast repair, so if they have had a significant bit of contact here in the opening laps, then they can pop their way down on towards the pit lane and get that car fixed. And that's exactly what Jack Mace will have to do, as he has no front end.
Jack Mace was that far off track that it actually showed on my track map that he was going the wrong way. Down one bit of the track there, so no, it's all sorted. He's back out on track. And if I'm in an LMP3 car, as here we go, looking back, it was a spin in front, and that just then got Salvatore spun around. Louis Hesketh was the one who had had that spin into turn 1. But if I'm an LMP3 driver, I'm getting frustrated with all these GTPs getting in my way.
Is this an effect of the cold tyres, Paul?
Potentially. I mean, it's a hot track temperature out there for them. This is Patrick Den. Well, that's why he's lost the front clip. Yeah, it's potential cold tyres, drivers just involved in a pack. Of course, if you're following other cars, you lose a little bit of downforce, don't forget, as well at higher speed. Oh dear, Patrick, no chance but to just try and keep it out the wall. Here's what happened to Cody. 2 into 1, not going. And yeah, Zeb Murray flying through, and then into the wall goes Zed as well. So a bit of carnage. I was about to say not really involving the LMP3s, but Joe Coffin went and ruined that for me.
Yeah, but you know, one sort of half spin for the LMP3s compared to the numerous instances that we've had in LMDHs, I think is still pretty good going, especially. Ooh, there's Jack Mace. That is a very high speed off across the grass, and well, good job he wasn't able to go all the way to the other side of the circuit. Otherwise, that's either is a very big penalty, or the iRacing system might even just choose to disqualifying straight up. As incident involving one of our LP3 pros, although it's an LP3 AM, that's out towards the outside of the circuit. And the LCS Championship leader, Aidan Carter, getting unceremoniously spun, coming out on towards the banking.
It's two lines converging right there. Car going around the outside wants to carry on going around the corner. The car on the inside understeers because it is quite a slow corner, is that one. And prototype cars in general don't have the greatest low-speed grip And so you'll see people making silly mistakes where they've gone in a little bit too fast, and you think, well, it wasn't that fast, surely. But yeah, the low-speed grip isn't the best on these cars. Once you get a little bit of speed and get the aerodynamics working, that's when these cars come to life. And yeah, just two cars side by side, lines converge. Unfortunately, leads to the inevitable contact.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So we actually have a lot of, well, quite a few cars that are currently, well, out of the main packs here because of the various instances that they've had. So we don't necessarily have one big long train of cars including everyone. These instances have kind of disrupted the flow somewhat with regards to that. So maybe a little bit of a change already as to the way normal Daytona races are handled. But this is the battle between Craig Curtis and Mark Baker here at the moment. So that is 7th and 8th in the prototype class, in the LMP3 class overall, but of course 4th in the LMP3 arm. As you can see, Baker just sort of all over the back here, trying to search for a way through that infield, but it is very, very tricky to do because passing here, it might be relatively, easy because you can just use the draft down the straights, make a move in towards turn number 1. Bob is your uncle, but unless you're able to pull away, you're going to have the exact same thing happen to you not in the not-too-distant future. Here's Charles Wembley involved in the battle as well. Oliver Ettridge trying to recover after that lap 1 incident coming out on towards the banking for the first time. Just thinking back to that incident, Paul, I don't really think it was a necessary one for Oliver Ettridge because he was leading in AM. He was trying to get down the inside of a pro driver. I don't think it was necessarily the best decision to be able to go for a risky move that early, especially when you consider cold tyres at that stage in the race. But, well, he's made his bed now, and now he has to lie in it.
I'd just like it on record that Bob isn't my uncle, Chris is. But, yeah, Oliver Ettridge, you're absolutely right. In the early stages, I can understand why you do want to try and sort of stay with the front group and why you want to try and fight for positions, but sometimes you've got to think the bigger picture and thinking, well, I'm the leading AM, I'm fighting other AMs, that's who my focus is on. Yes, it's nice to stay with the pros and to try and work with them and try and have them pull you away from the other AMs, but just think that bigger picture. And lap 1, you don't win the race on lap 1, but you certainly lose it. And there's still a long way to go yet. There's still 52 minutes to go, and it's not out of the realms of possibility that Oliver could get to Philip Carnell, who is the leading AM in LMDh, as Jordan Strudwick onto pit road. And that Acura, well, I said it was a sole Acura. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing that get a race win here today.
No, it's like you said, it is the only Acura out there, and unfortunately, down on towards pit lane, potentially getting a fast repair. Although is he even in the car still? I think he is, but yeah, it's a long stop, penalty. And yeah, it's penalty. So yeah, I was sort of questioning it when I didn't see him immediately roll off that pit box because well, the fast repairs are instant, right? So yeah, more significant issue for Jordan Strudwick then. So that is our only Acura out of the event at the moment. He might rejoin after he saved his penalty, but it will be significantly down the order.
No, he's disconnected from the server. He's done for the day. I wonder if it was speeding onto pit road. I mean, that's something that we've not touched on here, Connery. There are going to be pit stops for these drivers, and coming onto pit road as we've got a change for the overall lead, Ben Ford moving up ahead of Daniel Thomas. Coming onto pit road here is very tricky because you're going from one of the fastest parts of the track all the way down to, what is it, about 80 kilometers an hour here? 88 kilometers an hour. So you've got to get that car stopped to get onto pit road safely and within the speed limit.
Yeah, it is quite tricky, and it's not an uncommon occurrence to see people just completely lock up on the way down in towards those cones. Of course, the ABS will be helping, but there's Matthew Luke just heading his way through the SS section of Sector 1. Might have been a bit of an issue coming through turn number 1 there, but we caught the very, very back end of it. But you mentioned it at the time, Paul. Ben Ford and Daniel Thomas within the same postcodes, and I think this will be the case all the way up in towards the mandatory pit stop phase now. Here's Louis Heskethel on his own, on self-bang into the outside wall, coming through the bus stop there. It's a very, very easy place to go wrong.
Bang, and the car is gone, but Louis has gone back out there on track after going onto pit road. Getting some repairs done. Now, if they'd not damaged the suspension, because I know Louis was involved in that incident on lap 1, get a new clip on the front, and then maybe just save yourself a fast repair or not. Louis was about 29 seconds in the pit box, so potentially getting a bit of a service, new tyres on that car as well.
Absolutely, a bit of a gaggle here back in this 5th place for LMP3 AM, and of course you've got the LMDh is getting involved here as well as our first little bit of lapping procedure. Is down the inside goes Daniel Thomas in that LMDh Pro car. Again, it's traffic here. I mean, if you catch it on the banking, oh, we got a little bit close for comfort between the two there. So under normal circumstances, the LMDh lapping is okay here because you have the big bank sections, you have the back stretch, the front stretch to be able to get these passes done. As you can see, the LMDh cars go high here all the way around the outside of the LMP3s. But if you catch them in that midfield section, like what happened there, it can get a bit more sketchy.
Yeah, and the thing is now, we're going to get this lap traffic for the next lap or two, and then they'll get a bit of a respite once again. I bet they're thanking their lucky stars that they don't have GT3 traffic to worry about as well here today. But you could see how Ben Ford was able to get a little bit of a gap, but then that's closed up again, and David Bay, who was looking to be right on the tail of Daniel Thomas, caught that traffic at the wrong spot and is now the best part of 3 seconds behind.
Yeah, and that's just the way things fall, unfortunately. You can try your best to try and pick your way through, and in fact the best drivers in these sorts of categories will be more efficient in picking their way through and picking their battles, as we see a bit of a trip across the grass there. But overall, sometimes the luck's just not there and you lose a second extra compared to your competitors. But you do hope that maybe later on in the race the fortunes will be reversed, and then you end up getting that back. But it's never a guarantee, and it's always sketchy through the kink there, my word.
The dog leg is not the place to just go absolutely sending it down the inside as a car's turning in. That is, you have nothing but a small plane crash there is what you have when you have an accident. Oh, and Matt Baker's around. No, that was one of the big battles that we were seeing with Craig Curtis.
Yeah, and a very awkward spot as well, as drivers choosing to go left and right coming off the corner to avoid the car spun basically on the racing line coming out of there. But thankfully, everyone was able to avoid it, and Baker's able to get himself back in the race. But yeah, I mean, what did I say earlier about looping it out there?
Yeah. You're just keen to get on that throttle, aren't you? And to try and get the car pulled away, carry the speed along the banking towards the Lamore chicane. These two at the front, though, they've been stuck together in the early stages, but we've only been 15 minutes in this race. Plenty more to go in this one, and well, hopefully we get to see these two duke it out to the end. It's Cadillac versus Porsche at the front. And this is where you get to see just the differences in the cars. Which car has the slightly higher top speed over the other, and work that out, and you can pretty much see where potentially one car has the strengths over the other.
but also be the differences in the setups as well between the two. So does someone have a little bit more wing on that car? Does someone have a little bit less to try and help them on the high speed bits? Yeah, it's going to be all those little differences that will make up the whole story. As Ettridge, well, his day goes from bad to worse, as unable to control the car coming off the corner, takes an excursion through the grass here at Daytona, and I imagine the groundskeeper here at Daytona is gonna have a bit of a task in the after this race, after how many cars have been in that portion of grass.
It's a good job Jonathan Palmer doesn't own this track. He hates people going on his grass. But yeah, these two at the front, they're still going to be fighting it out. To be honest, I could see these two swapping places, like a couple of people at a breakaway in the Tour de France or something like that. But if I'm Daniel Thomas, I'm content in second place. If I can keep with Ben Ford, I'm going to sit in that slipstream, do fuel saving, so that then when it comes to the pit stops, I'm taking on less fuel and then able to get that jump in the pit stop cycle.
Yeah, it's certainly a valid strategy, and potentially the one Thomas will go for. Is we have a little look back. Callum Newton out wide there in that number 72 machine, still continuing on the fight here. This is with Liam Kelso on the outside. Kelso the long way around, trying to dip back in underneath, but it's not going to be successful in doing so, as this is the battle for second place in your AM category in the LMP3s, and they're being disrupted somewhat by a bit of LMDh, well, lead lap runners trying to get their way through here at the moment. That's always the a situation fraught with danger in the LMP3s, is that you have a great battle with with one of your competitors, and all of a sudden you have a couple of LMDHs that want to try and get through, and you kind of have to press pause on your battle for a little bit, or at least try and attempt to have that have those LMDHs try and make the gap through for you, but even that is tricky to time.
And that's where that experience, if you've got quite a lot of experience in multi-class traffic, especially with the speed that these GTP cars come up on the LMP3s, if it was an LMP2 category rather than LMP3, you wouldn't be seeing it quite as big a speed differential. But with it being LMP3, you're just seeing that bigger differential between the top speeds of the two classes of cars. But if you're involved in a battle like these two right now, and you can take advantage of that GTP traffic coming through, you try and do so, and you try and get one over the other driver. But that other driver is also thinking, well, if I can box you in with that other car, then you're not getting past me. It's great tactically astute racing that you'll see out here, as big moment on the grass there, and just losing the place to Callum Newton, down a place for Liam Kelso.
Yeah, so change of position there for the AM category in LMP3s, but still a couple of battles out there on the circuits. Of course, you've got the overall race lead as well, Ben for Daniel Thomas. That one is as close as ever, and I think, well, like I said, will remain so at least until the pit stop phase here, to see any sort of separation between those two. Go on, Paul.
I was just going to say, I swear we just saw a change in LMP3 Pro lead. And in fact, Ant Castles is now just dropping back a little bit from Andrew Merdel. So, yeah, change of position. I saw it go green on our timing tower on the left-hand side for LMP Pro. Ooh. And that is what's happened to Ant.
We were talking about the lapping procedure, right? Cody Cosford in the LMDh going to the inside from relatively far back, I should say, coming down into there, and unfortunately Castle's not expecting it, and well, ends up not hitting the barrier through the horseshoe there, but losing a whole massive bunch of time, and of course the chance potentially at getting an LMP3 Pro win here at the moment between himself and his only competitor of Andrew Medell. But yeah, that's just one of those things, a miscommunication between faster and slower traffic, which is very, very common, unfortunately.
Yeah, and when you think that Gareth Higgins isn't here today, defending that position for LMP3 Pro, should I say. There's only 3 points separating Castles and Madel, so you know, it's a case of you want to try and finish ahead of the other one to get one over them. So yeah, we'll have to see how that all pans out, and whether Ant has got a little bit of aero damage on that car as well from that contact. I don't think it should be too bad, but around here, aero damage can have a big effect.
Yeah, I mean, even a couple of kilometers an hour on the bankings is going to really hurt quite a bit. You just see your lap times tumble off, and all of a sudden you're under threat so much more from behind than you were previously. And it might be the case once we get to these mandatory stops where maybe some of these drivers had little bits of contact here and there, who do actually decide to go for that fast repair. Even though the damage may not be significant, it is still affecting them in a great deal when it comes to the straight line speed here, if they are a couple of kilometers now down on their top speed.
It's Sarah Dove, not the Dove from above, but the Dove under is attacking right now, and Sarah currently in 15th place overall, looking to make some moves here. That's Salvatore Garantino, so actually a good recovery to say that Salvatore was facing the wrong way on lap 1, turn 1. That's good recovery so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting back in the action, just brushing yourself off and getting back into the race. Of course, helped somewhat by how many incidents that we've had in the LMDh category, but you got to be in it to win it, I suppose. And it's like you said, a very decent recovery so far. As we maintain this on board with Sarah Dove, of course, she's 8th place in the LMDh Pro Championship at the moment, and potentially looking to try and pick up the place here, because Garanto had a very bad run through the bus stop, so it might be an opportunity up on the high side for Sarah Dove, but the difference sort of equals out here. So she had a run in terms of the slipstream and of course the advantage due to the mistake, but that advantage becomes less and less the longer she's hung out to dry there, and then commits on the brakes around the outside. Big move for Sarah Dove here. Tries to hold it around there. It's so tricky, but then gets chopped off, cut off as they head their way through the SS section, and the 21 is able to hold position.
Porsche versus Cadillac once again. How they go about things differently is what we're seeing right now, and that Cadillac does look strong here, although at the front of the field, it's mainly Porsches in the top 5. So we'll have to see how the race pans out, whether one car will be favoured at this track. Ant Castles onto pit road. I'm not surprised. I think possibly a little bit of diffuser damage, and that's costing a bit of speed. As Aidan Carter, we'll talk about going a little bit wiggly under braking there. A little bit of stability lost, and flash the headlights from behind, but made the move stick.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, it wasn't a guarantee, but very well worked in that particular situation. If you wanted to draw a parallel to the 2024 Rolex 34, it was a Porsche that won that this year, and it was a Cadillac that came in second. So will we see a replication of the result from this year, or will we see it swapped around? That's the issue.
It was a bit of strategy, though.
Yeah, and this 24 hour. Yeah, it's 24 hours versus an hour. Yeah, I get it, but let me build the narrative.
I mean, there's 0.2 of a second between the leaders. In fact, they're about to swap positions by our timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen. So it's getting close, and again, they're working their way through the last of the the back of the LMP3 field here. So once again, the leaders finding the traffic helps and then hinders them. It's just one of those things that the gods of endurance racing giveth, and the gods of endurance racing taketh away as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you see these gaps just fluctuating in and out as the lapping procedures go on, and someone who's going to feel a little bit hard done by at the moment is David Vey, the number 54 in the LMDh Pro category. He's still a couple of seconds off of the leading pair here at the moment, and yeah, it's whereas he was sort of making that a trio at the moment, sort of on the end of their slipstream through the first portions of the race. Unfortunately, like you said, a little bit of lap traffic just falling the wrong way, and all of a sudden he doesn't have the draft of the leading two, and has shown no signs of being able to minimize that gap at the moment. So, I mean, it could change within the pit stop phase. You never know what happens within laps, out laps, the actual stops themselves then. But for right now, tense stuff through the international horseshoe for Daniel Thomas, having to negotiate these LMP3s. But like I said, once the pit stop phase arrives, then potentially we might see things change. Potentially we might see David Vey get back into things depending on the set of circumstances. But right now it is a two-horse race at the front of LMDh Pro.
You saw how that gap went up to about a second then, momentarily, and it's hovering around 9/10. So that traffic has helped Ben Ford a little bit through all of this, and that infield section is the worst place to catch lap traffic. I know that from bitter experience, and that's not catching the traffic, I mean being the traffic. And certainly some drivers will throw audacious moves into some of those corners through the infield, and you think, never in a month of Sundays were you ever going to be able to make that work, and lo and behold, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at the fourth in LMDh AM here, so this is a battle involving Wimbley, Katzelberger, Ettridge, and actually if we, so they've been getting close once again. Of course, Katzelberger, the one with the lion's share of the slipstream off of Wimbley at the moment, but Ettridge is definitely still within range, still feeling the effects from that far back. But Wimbley having to be put on the defensive in towards turn number 1 here. The outside line not quite working out, and here we go. The two-car fight has now become 3 because Elov Ettridge, due to that little side-by-side moment, has caught in that couple of tenths of a second required to be able to potentially make an impact on this battle. Yeah,
so these two try to sort themselves out. I think Aidan Carter's had issues out. Oh, there, you see him just going through the foreground of shot, and here's a replay of what's happened. You feel so silly doing that. You really do. As a driver, you just get embarrassed, and you think, I hope nobody saw that. And then Hugo Luis, our producer, then goes and puts the replay. You know, it's one of those unfortunate things that can happen with prototype cars. It just, as soon as the back end starts sliding, you've not got the aerodynamics in the ideal position, and then you're just spinning, and you think, how? Ben Ford from the lead onto pit road.
Yeah, and Thomas still stays out, so a split in terms of the decision of exactly what lap to come down in on for your overall race leaders. So Ben Ford down and in before the halfway stage here. Actually goes up on the jacks for the tyres as well, But yeah, this is interesting. They are fuel limited. I mean, under normal circumstances, they wouldn't even make the error anyway. But they do have 75% fuel tanks here. And Ben Ford waiting for that fuel to go in is interesting. So we've had a couple of other visitors on towards the pit lane in LMDh and actually in LMP3 as well. So this isn't out of the ordinary for Ben Ford. But yeah, interesting that it is before the 30-minute mark, though.
This feels like a very long pit stop to me.
Oh, it is.
Finally pulls away. 38 seconds for Ben Ford. I'm just looking. Daniel Rees pitted the lap before, and it was 31.1 seconds. That does seem a long time, although Ben was leading and sort of forging a path there. If I'm Daniel Thomas, I pit this lap. I just instantly react. I'm going to have less fuel to put into the car, get it done, and try and make the jump in the pit stops.
Yeah, I mean, you see in the mini box as well, we see the battle for first in LMP3 AM as well between Cav Bud and Ethan Barford. Cav Bud ahead as they head their way in towards the bus stop here, and potentially another chance because it wasn't a clean run for Cav coming through the exit of the bus stop. So Barford will have another chance at this around the outside, but the runs kind of stall out. Yes, you get to the high the banking. You might have more speed coming off of the actual banking itself, but it is a longer way around the circuit, so you are losing a little bit in terms of that as well. They don't decide to head their way down on towards the pit line this time around, and Barford having to duck back in line, back out of line, trying to get that little bit of slipstream on before hitting the brakes in towards that turn number 1. But it's so tricky to make any progress around the outside there. It's not impossible by any means, but you do need the commitment and you do need the performance of the car underneath you to be able to make that one work.
You know, big moment there through the international horseshoe on corner exit. Back end not cooperating through the dog leg. Well, Ethan Barford to the top of LMP3 AM. But you'd know all about that, Connery, with your experience in oval racing here on iRacing. You'd pull out thinking, yes, I've got the run, and nobody joins you in that queue, and you're just sat there like a sitting duck just while the others just sit there at the same speed. It's so frustrating, isn't it, when you pull out, you think you've got that run, and then you just can't get the move done.
Yeah, there's nothing more frustrating in both disciplines of racing to be stuck behind a car that you know you're faster than. But you go onto the suboptimal line and all of a sudden all of your advantage just goes down the drain. So yeah, it is very, very tricky. I do empathize with the situations there. Just having a look at how the strategy is panning out for the drivers at the moment. So we've had essentially about half the field come down in at this point so far. And Daniel Thomas continuing to circulate out there in the lead of the LMDh pros. Of course, he has had quite a bit of time to be able to save a little bit of fuel, make the numbers look better and better. Well, I mean, it's an extra 2 laps at this point right now, it's looking like. So it's definitely a significant amount for Daniel Thomas. I wonder, maybe did Benford decide to come down in that little bit earlier deliberately? Maybe he found a gap that potentially that you could utilize, but right now it seems to be no issues with Daniel Thomas here. Hasn't had any problems with lap traffic or anything like that. So yeah, interesting decision. We'll see how this one works out.
Ben Ford, it's his first flying lap out of pit lane, 132.684 compared to Daniel Thomas's 132.872. So nearly 0.2 of a second quicker on that lap for Ben Ford. He's got less than a minute between himself and Daniel Thomas. I just felt that if you're following one another, the second car, you need to react straight away. I know what Daniel's doing. He's just wanting to try and run it to empty and then just have that short splash to take him to the end. But I just feel that you want to get a reaction immediately and get the jump done with you taking a much shorter pit stop.
Oh yeah, Ford hitting a little bit of traffic here at the moment, but it is able to negotiate it well so far. So if Thomas was hoping that traffic would disrupt Ben Ford's outlaps here, then he's going to be in for a rude awakening potentially here, as he's catching all of these LMP3s basically at the opportune time. So yeah, this is looking good for Ford here at the moment across the line. 133.4, which is a bit slower, but yeah, there was a little bit of traffic affecting this lap, but yeah, it's do we see Daniel Thomas coming down in at the end of this lap though? That is the big question. He is one of the drivers that's I mean, a group of drivers in the LMDHs that haven't come down in yet, so he's not alone by any means, but really time is ticking, trying to get the slipstream off of the number 93 Zed Murray, and here he comes, Daniel Thomas down on towards pit lane, get that car stopped for the pit lane speed limit. Meanwhile, Ben Ford embroiled in a little bit of a situation through the international horseshoe, which might be handing time back to Daniel Thomas here. Critical time, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's just that will hurt, going through that western horseshoe, having to go the long way around and not actually making that move clean until corner exit. Sometimes you're better off just waiting behind and then ducking under on corner exit to get the run out the corner. But here comes Ben Ford into that Le Mans chicane right now, and will carry that speed all the way through to turn number 1. Daniel Thomas off the jacks. He's got 30 seconds on pit road right now, or in the pit box, and away he goes. 32.1 seconds. Compare that to 37.9 for Ben Ford in the box.
Yeah, it was a very long stop, and it looks like that has come back to bite for Ben Ford, as he's just about entering turn number 1, as Daniel Thomas is actually out of the pit lane now, on the way down in towards the international horseshoe. That is a huge swing in terms of lap time. It's 6 seconds to the advantage of Daniel Thomas here at the moment, and he's trying to and weave around a little bit, make sure those tires are up to temperature and pressure. But he's done a very good job through this phase here. It was yeah, long stop, large amount of this, in fact pretty much all of it is due to the long stop from Ben Ford. It's about 6 seconds difference there, and it's about 6 seconds difference on track right now.
Yeah, there you see it. And that's how that lead has changed. 24 minutes though. Still time for moves to be made. Adam Locke is trying his best to hang on to 3rd place. He's gained 7 places overall in this race as Adam. And David Vey is now 4th place. And you think when the first time through the lap traffic, David Vey was right on the tail of the 2 leaders, he'll be looking at that sheet going, where did it all go wrong?
Yeah, potentially. But at least the focus is on this particular battle at the moment. Maybe the top 2 well, not impossibly further down the road, but unlikely here at the moment with 23 minutes left remaining. So for David Vey, looking to try and regain this 3rd place in this LMDh Pro category. He's going to be closing up. Which way does he go? He decides going either way, actually, and just brakes and decides not to run into the back of Adam Locke in that instance.
Glad he decided not to run into the back of Adam. That's very considerate driving.
Yeah.
As we've actually got, now that's the leader in the LMP3 Pro, Andrew Madel. So that was issues for car number 11.
Yeah. So look, our instant looks like anyway. So there's the strategy difference between these two at the moment, because Madela hadn't come down in yet. Yeah, I mean, we've seen that so many times here today. But Castles had come down in at that point, so doesn't lose the position immediately for Madel, but you would imagine after the pit stop phase now that P1 is in jeopardy.
Well, I mean, remember Castles, we think that he pitted early to get some damage repair done after that contact down at the Western Horseshoe. So it's a question of what's going to go on here. What a shot this is to just show how little visibility you have in a modern prototype car now. You've got a little pillbox view through the window on the windscreen, little windows to the side of you as well. You've got a rear view mirror that's actually a camera nowadays for these cars. It is amazing that drivers are able to race these cars and not make contact when they see so little as there's some lap traffic getting out the way in an extreme way.
Unorthodox way, it's probably fair to say. But yeah, it's like I don't know how the drivers in real life deal with the lack of visibility there, because it's kind of like racing sort of semi-blind. It doesn't sound like a comfortable situation whatsoever. Was that Cav Bud missing his pit box by just a little bit and having to come back into it? I'm not sure if it was just a glitch with the switch of the camera there, but it looked a little bit interesting. But Cav Bud anyway, down on towards the pit lanes. So a couple of the LMP3s as well. So it seemed like the the pit stop window is a bit wider for these LMP3s as Cavbud gets back going. And of course, big competitor in terms of that LMP3 AM leads. Oh yeah, he did miss it.
By a mile. Well, a mile. By one pit box. Matthew Lukes just suddenly popped up on my screen as having a mechanical meatball warning flag. So Matthew not having a good day in the office. 18th place overall for the LMDh Pro driver. And here's how it happened. Carry too much speed through there. Let the car roll backwards and contact. Oh, that's a heavy hit. I don't know who that was.
Yeah, well, that's added insult to injuries. Rear wing falls off as well. That was Cody Cosford in the number 14, actually having a separate incident potentially heading his way. No, he's continuing going. But yeah, it's again, it's one of those things that happens. It's for turn 1 here at Daytona. It is very tricky. You have to transition off of the banking. You have a couple of bumps that you have to be concerned about. It's not a sort of natural geometry of corner either. It's a bit weird in an aspect. So you have these all these factors coming together. It's very, very easy to get that particular corner wrong. When I was practicing for the Daytona 24 a couple of well, about 2 years ago now, I essentially used the iRacing sort of, you know, flashback sort of system, in testing where you can go back and practice a particular corner every time. I was doing that essentially like, maybe 100 or so times. Just keep going back, trying to make sure I get that particular section right, because it was something that was giving you a massive issue. And probably most drivers will agree that is the trickiest part of the circuit to get right here.
My former race team boss, Dave Crozier, for Team Mad, he once got lost at turn 1. There was an accident on lap 1, and he was in VR as well. To be fair, he got spun around a few times in VR, and then he started driving the wrong way towards the exit onto the oval. So it can happen here that strange things have happened at this track, but yeah, turn 1, such a tricky corner. For me, the corner I always struggled with is the Le Mans chicane. You're just carrying so much speed into that corner. You either spin it going into the start of the chicane, or you get a bit unsettled mid-chicane, and then you end up binning it into the wall like we saw one of our drivers earlier on, Louis Hesketh. Yeah,
it's fraught with danger coming through there. And when you add the additional factors of traffic through that section, like I said, it's tricky to get done on your own. But when you're having to negotiate other cars, the skill level required is a little bit more exponential. But as we're looking at this battle, P4 and LMDh is here. I'm keeping an eye on monitoring the gap for the LMDh Pro lead, but it's, in almost 6 seconds in 70 minutes is very tricky. But there's Craig Curtis having a bit of an issue, spun towards the inside, adding to potentially now what is an incredible amount of ruts down on that infield grass that will have to be sorted after the race.
Thank goodness it's not like at Indianapolis where you got the golf course.
Oh yeah,
that would be a hell of a lie, wouldn't it? Oh yeah, sorry, it's just in the tread of a Pirelli right there. But yeah, it's we joke, but yeah, it's not been a good day for a few of the drivers out there in this one, and struggling with the conditions. I will say, track temperature has been slowly coming down throughout this race. We are getting later into the afternoon. Wind speed about 22 kilometers an hour as well, so not a strong wind, but it's a stiff breeze.
Yeah, we are also getting some breaks in the cloud here as well. It was overcast for the vast majority of the race so far, but now you're starting to see a little bit of sky on a shot there. You actually be able to see the sky here, but yeah, it is breaking up. You can see just on the right hand side there, just breaking up a little bit. So we might see the sun start to peek through potentially a little bit later on, which will mean the track temp potentially not dropping as much as you've mentioned over the last couple of moments. But just sort of remaining on that point, though, even though it was overcast for a significant portion of this race, the track temp was still relatively high. You know, low 40s in terms of track temp. You know, despite not being in direct sunlight, that's still pretty toasty.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I'm amazed that the relative humidity for Florida is only 70% as well. And
there we go.
The beautiful patches of clear sky in this mostly cloudy sky. You can see how all the overcast cloud is slowly moving away off to the right there, and we're getting some beautiful patches of clear sky. You could go. Well, I suppose the height of that cloud, you'd be able to go VFR flying out of the airport, wouldn't you, anyway?
Yeah. I mean, the rules are a little bit different in the US compared to the UK, but the remaining 1,000 feet from cloud should be achievable. In that sense, you got the visibility requirements as well. I'm not going to nerd out about plane stuff here, Paul. You started something that potentially you cannot stop.
Well, I mean, it's just, of course, you got the classic sight of seeing the plane coming into land here at this venue, and fortunately, I think they have slowed it down a little bit, haven't they, compared to what its landing speed used to be. Used to be around about 300, 400 miles an hour, didn't it, that it was coming into land, that plane. So, yeah, they've wooed up the horses a little bit in recent years, but yeah, we've seen some great battles. Speaking of planes, we've got two drivers flying through the field, and right now we've got Luca Monroe on screen. He's what, in class, 10th in class right now for the AM, and looking ahead at Jamie Gibson, and that is a challenge for position, although Gibson's connection is a little bit worrying for me.
Worrying for you, worrying for the driver behind, I would say more so. It's never something that you want to see, because it just makes it, the whole situation just a little bit more complicated, because if you go for a move and they all of a sudden blink out, then you're just kind of having to take the leap of faith. So, oh, that's a fantastic shot. Well done, Hugo. Of the plane landing on the runway. The actual proper active airfield here at the Daytona International Speedway, as you see in the mini picture. A little bit of a situation going on between those two. Gibson pushing wide, but Monroe pushing even more wide, coming through turn 1. That's
what Ronism would be, a suboptimal line through turn 1 there for both drivers. And so yeah, away they go, and carrying on that fight for position. The lead gap, it's staying around about that 5.7 gap for the leaders in LMDh Pro. LMDh AM, I mean, Philip Carnell has done a sterling job to be 16 seconds ahead, and it shows that mistake from Oliver Etheridge at the start of the race has cost big time, really, in that LMDh AM battle.
Yeah, it really has, and Carnell just being in the perfect position to be able to capitalize on it. It's fantastic that he's being able to put himself in this position, because he's 8th place coming into this race in terms of championship in that LMDh AM category. So gaining potentially 25 points, maybe 26, depending on how the fastest lap falls. Of course, there is a bonus point for the fastest lap for each category here. So it's something potentially that might make a difference at the end of the whole championship. If there's only a couple of points in it, then you would have hoped to have had those fastest lap points. But it's difficult for us to work out for the moment because we can only really get the fastest lap for each class of car rather than for each subdivision. So that's something that gets worked out after the race.
Yeah, I haven't got enough beads on my abacus to be able to work that one out. So we'll leave that to the professionals running this this championship. Gibson down the inside of some lap traffic there into the Western Horseshoe, and on the power once again. You could see how Luca Monroe was just waiting a little bit until corner exit. As I said, using that dip under the inside, and on corner exit getting the run on that lap traffic. But Gibson's pulled out about 0.8 of a second right now over Monroe. So I think that basically now that battle is just settled for the time being. It's on for simmer, it's not to boil, which is fine for us out there. It really has been an intriguing race to watch all the way through. Liam Kelso and Aidan Carter in LMP3 AM. I think these two are going to be swapping places all the way to the end of this race because we're 10 minutes remaining, Connery.
Oh, and yeah, overextended a little bit there from Liam Kelso. Again, not quite able to get it done in towards turn 1, so has to fall in behind yet again. So the battle for P2 in LMP3 AM might be our main feature, potentially, for the very end of this race, if they can bunch themselves back up together. Of course, they are being disrupted somewhat by LMDh lead lap runners trying to get their way through here at the moment, and that procedure will have to take place coming through the exit of the infield section here. But yeah, Carter, I mean, he was, you can see Kelso not really wanting to let Valentino go that easily in terms of the lapping procedure there, not wanting to lose a ton of time. And Carter was actually the same with Daniel Rees, because he didn't let him through easily whatsoever in that instance either. So both LMP3s giving a hard time to the faster traffic here because they know how important their battle is.
Yeah, you've got to weigh up the percentages. We said earlier about, with Oliver Etheridge's start to the race, how weighing up the percentages can really work in your favour if you do that. And yeah, the battles for second place, you've got to look at it and think, I want to lose as little time as possible with these LMDHs coming through. And so you maybe lift out a little bit earlier into the braking zone, allow that LMDH past, and then be able to take advantage. There's Luca Monroe ahead at the line, which might be something that we see a little bit later. Big lock up from Gibson, but Monroe able to hold it around the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, doing what a lot of others have failed to do, and it's pull a move around the outside at turn number 1. Of course, not quite done just yet. Gibson will have opportunities to try and fight back here. They'll head their way through the on a bit of lap traffic through the dogleg here, but Gibson definitely has opportunities to try to respond here, especially if Monroe is going to make a little mistake. Is going to still be ahead by the time the exit of the corner arrives, but that's just more proof to the fact that this battle is still not done for 7th in the LMDh AM category. It's you know, now it's Gibson that has to be on the offensive here. He's the one that will have the slipstream as well, and potentially try and make this a swap again. Maybe not into the bus stop, but coming up towards turn number 1 next time around, it might still be on.
Certainly could be. As bus stop having to back out, and that's where things can then go really wrong, and it's just gone bad to worse. Trying to run around the outside, you're never going to do that through the bus stop. Take your medicine, hold behind, and then go on corner exit. And you can see that gap on the bottom right hand side of your screen. Luca Monroe now 1.1 seconds clear when there was literally just a couple of tenths between them going through turn 1 on the last lap. the leading LMP3 Pro, the only battle in LMP3 Pro, that's got within 4 seconds as that. It's not quite close enough for me to be thinking that could potentially be a close run thing towards the end, but that is a bit closer than I actually imagined that it would be.
Yeah, of course, you know, there's been incidents that have befallen both drivers over the course of this event, but yeah, it is very interesting. There was a big difference in terms of the exact lap that these guys came down in on. I mean, Medel is only 7 laps on his stints, whereas Castles is 17 laps on his stint here at the moment. So it was a very, very big difference in terms of the pit lane decision making between the two of them, but in the end, 4 seconds with everything that's happened to the both of them, not too much whatsoever. Difficult to surmount inside of 5 minutes, but not impossible. You know, we might have LMDh traffic affect Medel, for example, that then drops him back into the clutches of Castles, so Castles might have a chance at the very end of the race, but really you're relying on outside factors at that point to try and improve your race rather than your actual pace.
Can I just say, because I don't think we've mentioned this driver at all throughout the entirety of this broadcast, apart from when you read their name out on the grid. Franciszek Sikorski, what a drive from your LMP3 AM leader. 14, that's right, 14 seconds ahead of Aidan Carter in class. Absolutely sensational drive from Sikorski, and I just want to mention him before the end of the race, because like I said, I don't think we actually mentioned him at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, quiet but confident race, and ends up potentially, of course it's not over until it's over, but potentially being an AM winner of the LMP3 sort of category as a whole. So the fastest LMP3 might be an AM driver at the very end of this race, which will be a interesting little situation to have happen. We almost had it happen at Daytona, but sorry, at Spa. But we might have it happen at Daytona with an AM winner of the entire class of cars. Not such a situation in LMDh, of course, because Daniel Thomas continuing to maintain that 6-second gap back to Ben Ford. There's still question marks over P3 in that category. Adam Locke and David Vey, less than half a second between those two there, as we see Daniel Rees and Robin Katzelberger. At least Rees having a little bit of a look in that instance, and no Katzelberger, he's gonna go a little bit wide, and well, more than a little bit wide, and that might actually lose the spot to Charles Wimbley as well, and he has. So that's two potential positions lost in one go for the number 89. Yeah, gonna have to lick his wounds after that one, and not a lot of time to recover with 3 minutes that we have to go as well.
That's important for Wembley to get ahead of Katzelberger, of course, in the championship. Although saying that, I think we're giving these drivers the curse of the commentator right now, aren't we? Yeah.
So Wembley with a slide ends up letting Katzelberger back through. And actually that's Salvatore Garanto back through as well, but he's a pro driver in and amongst these AM competitors. So there's the battle that I was talking about briefly. Adam Locke versus David Vey, very close for third place in the LMDh Pro category, and there's going to be a string of traffic that these guys will have to try and head their way through on. I'm not sure whether they'll catch they'll probably not catch the LMDh traffic, you know, by the time the checker flag comes out, but the LMP3s for sure, and that might be the big disruptor of this one.
Could well be. Yeah, we'll have to see how this one pans out, but we're only going to be, now where is the overall race leader? Just coming into the Le Mans chicane. You're talking a 1 minute 32 lap, potentially 2 laps at the line, potentially 1. I think it's going to be 1 lap at the line, actually, just looking at the timing. So time is running out for David Vey, who it looked so promising until about 12 minutes in, and then just the gap grew.
Slowdown penalty.
Yes,
He got a slowdown penalty through the chicane there. Yeah, I was wondering, you know, he looked like he had a good run and then he immediately backed off of it. So, it was so easy to pick up through there.
Yeah, massive. Absolutely massive, and that throws away the opportunity. But you're trying to carry so much speed through there, and you're trying to keep up with that third place driver of Adam Locke. You've got to really push the limits. Unfortunately, just pushed it a little bit too far on this occasion.
Not quite 100% done here, because it's same class traffic in the form of Cody Cosford for Adam Locke to try to negotiate, and there's a little bit more further down the road that might be affecting things towards the back end of this lap. So yeah, it's tricky, but also not impossible here at this stage, as we have just that half a minute now before we get the checkered flag out there on circuit. Battle for 5th in LMDh as well, so Katzelberger versus Wimbley, part 2, I suppose, as Wimbley ending up losing that position. He gained just moments to go due to a bit of a slide, but now he'll have at least one more stab at it before the end of this race.
Do you know who just picked up a slowdown penalty on this lap? The race leader, Daniel Thomas.
Ooh.
And I think we're going to get the checkered flag. It is coming to the line. It is the last lap.
Yeah, so there we go. A big strategy call, well, one in the pit box for Daniel Thomas as he flashes the lights and comes across the line for the LMDh Pro win. The number 60 takes it all by just shy of 5 seconds back to Ben Ford after a very long stop, basically completely decimated his race. Philip Cannell, though, heading his way across the line now as the LMDh AM winner with a very confident race indeed. Not too far behind a couple of very quick pro drivers as well. So fantastic job there from Cannell. And then we have a little bit of a look back to some of our other battles. Wimbley ahead at this point over Katzelberger. So that was a bit of a change late on between those two. And Wimbley recovering a couple of points as far as his championship is concerned. He'll head his way across the line now. In terms of your LMP3s, though, there's Andrew Medell. I mean, it's a literal 2-horse race in the LMP3 Pro category, but there were some question marks hanging over it at many points over the course of this event. Medell heading his way through the bus stop chicane now, and with a 3.5-second advantage over Ant Castles, should be home and dry as your winner in the LMP3 Pro category. Of course, no Gareth Higgins here today, so that's going to be a big swing as far as championship points are concerned. And Magella heading his way across the line, but directly ahead of him, it's actually the LMP3 AM driver of Franciszek Sikorsky taking the race win in LMP3 AM. And not only the race win in LMP3 AM, but the fastest LMP3 in the race here today as well. First one to the checkered flag. Andrew Medell coming in behind for the pro win as well. So a little bit of a more relaxed affair at the very end of this race, all things considered. A little bit of a change to what we saw at Daytona, where we had major question marks over some significant positions. But either way, this is how they come across the line. This is pending, of course, steward's review from a good handful of the incidents that we've had out there on circuit. But it is Daniel Thomas that takes the race win here today, with Ben Ford in second place. Still a comfortable second place for Ben Ford. Of course, it'll be his second place this season. And then you've got Adam Locke there in P3. David Vey with a great performance up into P4 with William Foyle in P5. Christian Ceruta in P6 with Seradov. Salvatore Garanto in P8 with Matthew Luke in 9th and Cody Cosford in P10. Jordan Stridwick, of course, one of our retirements from early on in the race in P11. Then in your LMDh AM category, Philip Cannell by 22 seconds. That is a heck of a margin for victory for the number 7 in the LMDh AM category. Oliver Ettridge, of course, pole position sitter for that LMDh AM effort, but after a little bit of an over-optimistic move on lap 1 on a pro driver, ended up being cycled way down the order, but did a very good job to try and recover up into a second place. Then you've got Rocco Valentino in P3 with Daniel Reis in P4 with Charles Wimbley P5. P6 goes to Robin Katzelberger. Of course, P4, 5, and 6 was a little bit of an unknown towards the end there, but that's the order that they come through in. Luca Monroe ahead of Jamie Gibson. That was a battle that we were watching throughout this race as well. But it's Monroe that comes out on top in that one for P7 versus P8. And then you've got P9 Patrick Den. Unfortunate for him that this race didn't go any better, especially considering his performance at Spa-Francorchamps for our first rounds. Louis Hesketh in P10. Then the bottom of the order for LMDh AM, Jack Mace and Zed Murray after a couple of instants for the both of them. And then in your LMP3 Pro, I mean, there's only 2 of them. Andrew Medell this time around comes away as the race winner with Ant Castles in behind. LMP3 AM, however, Franciszek Sikorsky comes away with the race win after a fantastic performance here. Second place at Spa, first place at Daytona. Very, very good start to the season for Sikorsky, and it wasn't necessarily an easy affair. He did have to try and work for that, trying to build that gap in and amongst all the traffic. Fantastic stuff. Then you've got Aidan Carter there in P2 with Liam Kelso P3, Ethan Barford P4 with Callum Newton in P5, Joe Coffin, Baz Meacham, Cav Bird, Craig Curtis and Mark Baker round out the top 10 there. Belal Usman retirement 36 laps down. So that's the top to bottom in terms of the results here, Paul. Like I said, maybe a little bit of a less chaotic affair than what we saw at Spa, at least in terms of the end of the race. Everyone sort of in their own space. The battles mostly settled by the time the checkered flag came out. However, we still have some strong performances to talk about. Of course, you know, the obvious one is Daniel Thomas with that advantage in the pit stop and then maintaining the gap at the very end. And of course we have Sikorsky with a dominant performance in the AM category LMP3s as well. So still some things to highlight here, despite the battles being somewhat lacking towards the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I say, I think there's 2 drives of the day for me. One is actually Adam Locke working his way through the field up into 3rd place. I think done a good job there from where he started in 10th place. But then the other one is, of course, the winner overall in LMP3, which of course is an AM driver winning overall, which is again something that you don't see that often. But Sikorsky was absolutely imperious at the front of LMP3 this time.
I mean, we might be able to get to talk to the man himself, as we'll drag him up into the commentary booth. Paul, take it away with not only your LMP3 AM winner, but the fastest LMP3 that was out there today in the race.
Yeah, well, I mean, you must be absolutely delighted there, Franciszek, for getting the race win here overall, as well as in your category.
I think I have to say that I'm pretty satisfied with this result, but not everything during the race went the way I wanted, especially spinning just after I made the pit stop, I think 2 or 3 laps. I don't know if it was broadcasted. Later on, I also started to have an issue in bus stop, where at the exit I got a lot of oversteer, and there was a near collision with a hypercar, so quite a difficult race at the second stage, but at the same time I'm really satisfied with the result I come up today.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when you consider the gap that you had over Andrew in second place, it looked from us a comfortable race, but you're telling us it wasn't. I mean, give the people at home a little bit of an idea, as somebody who's driving that LMP3 around this track, how difficult is it to judge where those GTP cars are going to be making them moves, and from how far back do you expect them to be making moves?
So I think that you really have to be ready for everything that can happen. I made myself lose some time during lapping. I think I went off onto the grass 2 or maybe 3 times during that process. But I think the main key that made me so fast today was definitely the low drag setup, which was absolutely incredible. I was praying that the rain wouldn't come because there were some predictions that it might be happening, but fortunately it wasn't here with us. So yeah, got everything together, make sure not to crash and end up in a wall. So pretty happy again with the result.
And just very quickly, Road America next time out in 1 week's time. How do you see that going? It's a little bit of a narrower track than here.
I think that I actually like tracks where you need to put a little bit more downforce, so I don't think that it won't be that much of an issue. I drove Road America a few weeks ago when I was driving in the Formula Skip Barber series. The results weren't as good as I would have wanted, but I think getting some knowledge even from the F4 car, I don't think I will have a lot of issues going there next week with the LMDh car.
Well, all the best and congratulations on the race win here today.
Thank you very much, boys.
Well, there we go. Francis Sikorsky there. Winner in the LMP3 category. He sounded very self-critical there, despite winning the race by a significant margin. It seemed like it didn't sound like he was particularly happy, despite what he says.
I think it was about a 12 and a bit second win was that. So I think he's been a perfectionist, and that's what you've got to be at this sort of level and to keep this level of competition up. You've got to try and be a perfectionist to try and find those extra tenths per second.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll keep an eye on his progress throughout this season. Of course, a second place in round 1, first place in round 2, not too shabby whatsoever. We are still waiting for the leaders in the other categories to grace us with their presence here. But overall it was a fantastic event for Sikorsky. I mean, ignore the slow-mo at the moment as they're going out in towards the grass. This might be the spin that he was talking about after the pit stop phase. But yeah, it was fantastic seeing him out there and potentially getting his season off to a potential championship challenging start. But of course, that all depends on how things go at Road America, Suzuka, and Silverstone. But yeah, so we will get a couple of the other drivers in fact. So we will bring David Vey in. Why not? Because the actual leader of or at least the winner of the race decided to not come and interview us. So it gives us a little bit of a chance to interview with a couple of the other drivers. So David, first of all, how's things going? And second of all, P4 in the race. Are you happy with that?
I would have been happier, especially considering how close I was to a podium position. But I couldn't get the feel of the car really. From the start of the weekend, I was struggling with grip everywhere, lockups, rear lockups. I was trying to play around with the setups and the brake bias, but I just couldn't get the hang of it. And then I had some bad luck with the pit stop. I couldn't get a good outlap, so I got jumped by P4, and in the end I couldn't get it back.
So a little bit of a turbulent race, all things considered. We did notice that you were there with Thomas and Ford at the very start of the race, but like you said, with the pit stop phase not going your way, it seemed like that sort of ended up making sure that you didn't end up getting the top stats on the podium. But but just take me through the lap traffic situation here at Daytona. Of course, we had maybe a couple of issues at Spa with the traffic. But how do you feel that went here today at Daytona? Because it's a weird circuit. Because me and Paul were discussing on the broadcast, some places where it's very easy to pass on the banking, on the front and back straights, but when you catch the traffic in the midfield, in the infield section, it can be very sketchy. How did you negotiate those situations as they came up?
I think the hardest part was actually the bus stop, because in the bus stop, if you got the traffic wrong, you can easily lose 2 seconds. So I was a victim of that as well. I lost 2 seconds and lost the draft as well to P2, I think, for a while. And but on the infield as well, it's very hard sometimes to overtake, because you want to get through the traffic as fast as you can, but you have to consider that if you are a bit too confident, you can easily cause a crash.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I mean, we saw a good couple of incidents out there today. So in amongst the LMDh field in particularly, where people were struggling, at least in the early stages, to keep themselves on circuit. But next week we head to Road America. So just to sort of get your overall feelings about that one, quite a different circuit compared to Daytona. So, so you expecting a similarly good result, or is it going to be more of a struggle?
We will see. Currently hopes and prayers, but we will see. I want to get around the podium. Hopefully I will have the pace, and we will see.
Yeah, well, wishing all the best for you. It's fantastic to have a little bit of a conversation with you, and best of luck for the next event.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. That's David Veer there in P4 in the LMDh Pro category here today. Of course, potentially had a chance to, if he didn't end up losing the draft to the leaders in the early stages and maybe had a bit of a better pit stop phase, potentially there might have been a chance for a podium there for Veer. And I mean, it was very close with Adam Locke towards the very end there, but it doesn't seem too hard done by the situation.
No, that the mixture between somebody winning in their class and winning overall in their category, not being happy with the performance, and then the difference of somebody who was early on challenging for podium but then dropped back. I think that, but still being happy with the performance, I think it's good to be able to not completely kick yourself whilst you're in the come down from that race. So no, it was a solid drive from David. I personally, I think I would be a little bit disappointed if I'd missed out on that podium. Yeah,
absolutely. We will get another opportunity to talk. Well, we get an opportunity to talk to another winner. So Philip Cannell. I'm going to bring Philip up into the commentary booth now. Philip Cannell, race winner in the LMDh AM category. Paul, take it away with Philip.
Yeah, Philip, I mean, not a bad result really to get a race win here in your category. How did you see that race go for yourself?
First of all, I was a bit disappointed in Spa because I made a silly mistake leading the race in my class, locked up in the bus stop and got a drive-through penalty for not serving the slowdown in time, which was a shame. So yeah, goal for this race was basically not to make any silly mistakes, which I could happily avoid. I think I profited from a bit of carnage up ahead in lap 1, haven't looked at that at the moment. But yeah, from there on it was just managing until the end, which worked out pretty good.
Yeah, and this almost sort of kickstarts your championship campaign with Charles and Robin finishing a bit further down the field from you. I mean, you must be happy to get that chunk of points now going into Road America next time around.
Yeah, for sure. I was always having a look at the gap behind, but I was happily catching the slipstream from the cars ahead. So it was quite a laid back race. Just avoiding mistakes and looking forward to Road America.
Yeah, and it's only a week to get practicing and that. How are you feeling going to there?
It's actually a good. Yeah, it's lucky for me that this track is up next because we will have a 12-hour race with the team, so the practice for that will come in handy. So I'm gonna get in some laps and hope for a better result than this race.
Well, we'll let you get away and review the tape of this one, but congratulations on the class win here for you today in LMDh Am.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Well, there we go. Philip Cannell, winner in the LMDh Am category. But that will be all that we have time for here today in the 2024 Abruzzi Prototype Challenge this evening from Daytona. But next time out, August 27th, exactly a week from now, we'll be heading to Road America. Quite a different race, potentially, to what we've seen here at the Daytona road course. A very, very fun track to drive and very fun track to watch racing as well. So that's something you definitely don't want to miss. Road America next time out here in the Abruzzi Prototype Challenge here in conjunction with Motorsports UK here on RaceSpotTV. We had a fantastic race here today. Another set of race winners. Championship now in full swing. But for now, we will have to tell you to enjoy the rest of your evening and say goodbye.